Hey, what's up, God's people and fellow ambassadors? Welcome back to the Ambassadors channel. We're here. It is all about motivating you, the people of God, to be true disciples of Jesus Christ. And when I say the people of God, I am referring to every one of you that is watching this video. You may say, well, I'm not a believer. You just stumbled up on this video. Well, what I mean by that is you were created by God. We are all created by God, so we belong to Him. Whether we believe that, accept that or not, we belong to Him. And so He's calling all of us to enter back into the kingdom, to come back to righteousness, to come back to holiness, to come back to who we are, and not something that we have become that we're not. And so when I say all people, all believers, all the people of God, motivating the people of God to be true disciples, I'm referring to that group of people, which is everyone. So again, let me say it again. Welcome to the Ambassadors channel. It's all about motivating you, the people of God, to be true disciples of Jesus Christ. And if this is your first time tuning in, I want to say thank you very much for doing so. Do me a favor, watch this video all the way to the end, as well as go back and check out some of my previous videos and let me know what you think in the comment section as well. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe button also. So today, or should I say this month, I want to spend some time going over the life of Moses. And in the past, I've said that we can really learn a lot from the patriarchs. We take some time to study their life and to see how God called them and their response to the call of God, and how they move from not knowing God into having somewhat of a relationship with God, and then having a full-blown relationship, and the interaction between God and them, and just how they mature in their spiritual walk with God. It's a lot that we can learn from that. And so this month I'm going over the life of Moses, just talking about Moses. And I'm going to start off from chapter 3. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So in the book of Exodus chapter 3, it says that now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. So as you know the story with Moses, that at the time when Moses was conceived and born into this world, that the Pharaoh had given a decree for all the children, the male children of the Hebrews, to be destroyed, to be killed. That's what he told the midwives. He said, if any male child is to be born, then they were supposed to kill all the male child. But the midwives did not do that because they feared God. And here come Moses, and Moses was born, and of course his mother, looking at him, saw that he was a godly child, which to me that God had His hand up on Moses from the beginning. And we can tell from the story, from the beginning to the end of the story, that God had His hand up on Moses. So she hid Moses as long as she could, so up until 3 months. So at 3 months, where she could no longer hide him, she built a little makeshift raft, a basket, covered it up, wrapped the child up, put him in it, and he was floated down the river. And here it is now. So God intervened. I believe God intervened. I don't think it was an accident or coincidence that Pharaoh's daughter happened to pass by and saw Moses in the basket floating down the river. And so as the child was floated in the basket, Pharaoh's daughter saw the child, and also his sister followed along, Moses' sister that is. And out of compassion, again I'm gonna say that God moved upon the heart of Pharaoh's daughter. Out of compassion, she drew him out of the water. And at that moment, his sister, Moses' sister, approached Pharaoh's daughter and said, hey, do you want me to go get one of the midwives of the Hebrews to nurse the child? And then, you can go back and kind of get the child when you're ready. I'm paraphrasing now. And so that's kind of what happened. She said, okay, gave the daughter to the sister. The sister, being smart, brought Moses back to the mother. Pharaoh's daughter ended up paying Moses' daughter to wean the child. After the child was weaned, went back to Pharaoh's daughter. Fast forward now, 40 years later, after she received Moses, 40 years later, Moses decided to come out and take a look at the burden of the children of Israel. He wanted to come out and see what they were going through, what they were facing. And I think because he wanted to help to alleviate the burden. He wanted to help restore some type of freedom to the people. but he was trying to do it in his own strength. And so he ended up killing one of the Egyptian soldiers, the Egyptian, I'm gonna say, taskmasters, because he was fighting with another Hebrew. And so Moses killed him, hid him in the sand. A couple of days later, maybe even the next day, I'm not sure, he was out walking again, and this time he saw two Hebrews fighting against each other. And so he confronted the one that did the wrong. So of course, the one who did the wrong replied to Moses and said, okay, are you going to kill me like you killed a Hebrew? You're going to kill me, hide me like you did too? So at that time, Moses became real afraid and scared, because he thought that what he had done, no one knew about it, that no one saw it, that no one witnessed. And so the Israelite at that time didn't really understand that God was prepping Moses and was going to use Moses as their deliverer. And I say this again, and I think everything unfolded the way it was supposed to unfold. And so Moses ran away to a country called Midian, and he was in Midian for a very long time, long enough to where the priest of Midian, Jethro, gave Moses his daughter to wife. And from there they had two children. They had two sons. Okay, fast forward again. Now we're up to chapter 3, where we see Moses has been taking care of Jethro, his father-in-law, sheep and herd and cattle and things like that. And so he goes out on a regular routine day, to do his regular shepherd stuff. At this point, he went from a prince and became a shepherd. And so he's shepherding the sheep and the flock, and out of nowhere, unexpected. I'm gonna say it's unexpected. Moses wasn't thinking about that. Unexpected, God showed up in a flame of fire, in a bush, in the middle of a bush, without consuming the bush. And here it is. So here's two things that we can glean from this, and that I would like to share with you. And I would like to hear what you think about it too as well. So here it is. So Moses took the sheep into the desert, and the Lord appeared to him. But take real close notice to when, where, and how God showed up. Number one, here's the first thing I want to share with you, that God knows where you are, where I am, where all of us are at any given moment. He knows where we are physically. He knows where we are spiritually. He knows where we are mentally. He knows exactly where we are. None of us can hide from God. It doesn't matter what we've done. We can try to run from our problems. We can try to run from our situation. But one thing we cannot run from, one person we cannot run from, is God. Let me change it to two. Two people you cannot run from. Number one is yourself. Number two, you can't run from God. No one can run from God. The eyes of the Lord is everywhere. The eyes of the Lord see everything. Let's take a look at Proverbs. Let's take a look at Proverbs 15:3. 15:3 says, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. So even though Moses left Egypt, is in Midian, carried the sheep to the back of the desert somewhere, God knew exactly where to find him. God knew exactly where he was. So that's number one. The first thing is that God knows where you are. God knows where to find you. And there's nothing that we can do that is hid from the eyes of God. Neither can we run from the eyes of God. He knows all and he sees all. So that's number one. The second thing, though, is that's very important, and I think it's the highlight of this video, is that pay close attention to what Moses was doing. I said it earlier, but if you read it and take a good look at it, Moses was doing his everyday routine. He was doing everyday routine. You know, just matter of fact, he was at work because he was taking care of the flock. That was his job. That was his responsibility, to take care of the flock. As Jethro, the priest of Midian flock. So what am I saying in that? What I'm saying in that is that God shows up in any given place at any given time. It doesn't matter where we are. God can show up on the job. God shows up in our car. God shows up in our house. God shows up in a song. God shows up in just various ways. And so we should never compartmentalize God, especially when it comes down to work, because God is not compartmentalizing us. He's not saying that, oh, they're at work, I'm not going to mess with them, I'm not going to talk to them, I'm not going to say anything to them, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait till Bible study to speak to the preacher. I'm going to wait till Sunday service to speak to the ministers. That's when I'm going to do it. No. He spoke. He came to him when he was working, least expected. And sometimes we don't expect God to speak in situation because it's just out of the norm, or it's something. It's not religious. Excuse me, that's not religious. We want to stay away from being religious. We want to be spiritual people. We want to be people that have a relationship with God, not religious going through the motion. So what I'm trying to say is, we think that God don't speak in certain arenas, in certain places. When we take a look at the Bible and saw how God called a lot of other people, he called them very similar to the way he just appeared and called Moses. He may not call us the way that he did for Moses and some of the other people in the Bible and speak to us that way, but he's still speaking today. He speaks through preachers. He speaks to teachers. He speaks through unbelievers, believe it or not. He speaks through unbelievers, the saved as well as the unsaved. For example, you might be able to attest to this. Have you ever been talking to someone and they're saying something to you, and they're talking, right? And they've said something to you, but what they've said just got your ears really perked up. They said something with their mouth, but you heard something else, and you knew that was God speaking through them. Or if you're just observing nature, or just the sound or something, and it's a certain sound and a certain pitch or a certain look that just spoke to you, and you knew it was God speaking to you. That's what I mean. God speaks in so many different ways, and he's still speaking today. He speaks to the just, and he speaks to the unjust, and sometimes they don't even know that God is speaking. And we should never compartmentalize God. Don't ever exclude God from your work, your corporate work, your whatever you do, because God can show up and speak to you in those situations. As a matter of fact, he wants to show up and speak to us in those situations. He wants to be involved. So don't think that because you're at work, because you're in the grocery store, because you are at home, you're in the car, whatever the case may be, God speaks to us. When we take a look at some other examples in the Bible, for example, he spoke to Samuel when Samuel was a young child sleeping. Samuel was trying to go to sleep. As a matter of fact, he was working in the temple. Nighttime came, he was trying to go to sleep. God called him. Samuel thought it was Eli calling him. He went to Eli and said, Eli, did you call me? I'm still paraphrasing. So Eli said, no, I didn't call you. Go back to bed. He did it again. Eli said, the next time you hear the voice call you, just say, here I am, Lord. That was the Lord speaking to him. Out of nowhere, unexpected. Same thing happened to Peter. Peter and his brother Andrew. They were out fishing. Again, they were working. You get the theme here? They were working, doing normal everyday situation, and God showed up and called them, gave them instruction. So what I'm saying to you is this, just this part, I'm not going to go any further with it, but I'm going to continue with part 2, is that we should never compartmentalize God. Have the understanding that God will speak to you when you least expect it. It could be that you're driving in the car. A song may have came on. It could be anything. You could be watching a movie and God will speak to you through the movie or just listening to a song. So those are the 2 things I wanted to share with you concerning what we can get from Moses. There's a lot more. And if you've read this and got something else out of it, please share it with me and let me know. The Bible says iron sharpen iron. But those are 2 things that I wanted to bring out, that I was looking at. The fact that, number 1, God knew exactly where Moses was. And he knew exactly where to find him, because nothing is hid from the eyes of God. Number two is that God showed up unexpected while Moses was working. I'm saying while Moses was working because he was taking care of the flock, and that was the job. And so looking into it, I went back and I did some more studies, and I noticed that God had a habit of showing up when people were working. He did it for Gideon. That's another one. Gideon was threshing wheat in the winepress while he was working, and God showed up and began to speak to Gideon, give him instruction. So again, be open, be ready, that God is trying to speak to you. God bless.